welcome. Here's some examples of some rosemaling that I've done to give you an example of how intricate you can get and also how simple you can get. And it also gives you an idea of the colors that you can use for rosemaling. Now, rosemaling comes from Norway, and there's different sections of Norway that have different takes on the rosemaling. They have different styles. This is the one that I really like and that I've learned when I was probably about 20. And she was a real stickler for sticking with the traditional colors and the traditional styles. So you can vary the styles, but once you know, do this pattern here, it'll get your feet wet on how to do rosemaling, but I don't think it'll be too overwhelming for you. So we have this pattern here, and we also have these blocks at the shop, and they're just $1. So if you want to come by and get these blocks, you sure can. Otherwise, this fits pretty much any square, kind of. Maybe find maybe even a bowl or like a box, a wooden box or something to use this pattern on. So first what we do is we scribble. So this is pretty easy, isn't it? All we do is we scribble on the back, and for old people like me, this is what we're going to use as like our carbon paper. For young people in the old days, we had carbon paper when we were especially typing. So this is what we're going to do to transfer our pattern onto our wood. So you scribble on the back, scribble really nicely. Scribbling is important here. And the darker you get it, the better it'll transfer onto here. So once you scribble on the back, scribble all the areas where your lines are going to be. Then you can just kind of check by holding it up and making sure that you cover all those areas. Then what you're going to do is you're going to place it, center it on your block or whatever you're making, and then go ahead and trace your pattern on. Now what works best for me is, instead of just doing just a one-time line, what works for me a little bit better is to do almost like, I don't know, what would you call it, Pauline's chicken scratching or whatever?
Yeah, a little scribbling.
Yeah, and then that gives you a little bit better line. Then once you transfer it on, it works really good, but sometimes you might have an area where it's not covered very well. So then I just take my pencil and then I go over it, and that seems to work really well. You can use chalk too, but chalk seems to get pretty messy. And you can also use graphite paper, but graphite paper seems to be, unless there's other kinds, but when I've used graphite paper, it gets to be really, really messy. So this is a cheap, inexpensive, and I've got this at home kind of way to do your carbon paper. Okay, so once you've got that done, what you can do when you're practicing too is, if you have any tracing paper, just slip your design underneath there, and instead of just going right for the board without practicing, this is a good way to practice. And once you have that step to the point where you like it, then go ahead and start on your block. Okie dokie.
That's a great idea for people like me who get all excited to do something and then screw up right away.
Yeah. Well, you know, the more you do this, the better you get at it. And it's just kind of like anything else too. So I hope you don't get frustrated, and I hope you find it relaxing, because this isn't speed painting. What we're going to be doing is, the word of the day is double loading your brush. And that's pretty much what we do for most of it. And you have to go over it and kind of smooth it out a little bit. So to me, I find it relaxing. So the 3 brushes that you'll probably want is a really good liner brush. I think that's what you would call it. The one that's going to give you some really fine lines. And then see how these are flat brushes? You'll probably want to get 2 different sizes of those, because as you see in the middle part here, these little petals, you're going to use your little brush on that. But then for the leaves and the bigger petals, you're going to find that the bigger brush works a little bit better. So these are the 3 brushes that you pretty much need. And if you take care of your brushes, they're gonna last you. So it's good to invest in some better quality brushes that you'll be happier with. And then just take really good care of them and they'll last you for a long time. So the colors that we're gonna use, and originally they used oil paints, and to tell the truth, oil paints work a little bit better because it gives you a little more time to play around with blending the colors. That's what I used on this bowl here. And in some ways, I think the colors are a little bit better too. But for purpose of not investing a lot and having easy cleanup, we're going to do acrylic paints. So acrylic paints dry a little faster, so it's a little bit better to have a little bit of paint on your, well, my expensive palette, otherwise plastic plate. Yeah, I know, have that. Also, so we're gonna use like a really good dark blue, as true a blue as you can get, and a true of yellow as you can get, and the same with the red, and then a brown, a black, a white. Now this, if you can get it, is actually gonna save you a little bit of time, because with Rosemaling, you're not gonna use bright colors, and you see we're not gonna use purples either. And in order for it to be authentic, that's what we're gonna follow. Otherwise, if you use purples and pinks and bright colors, you're in danger of having the Rosemaling police come to your house and confiscate your whatever you've been doing. Well, anyway, I've never heard them come to your house, but in order to keep authentic, this is what we're gonna do. What you do in your own house on your own time is up to you. Just don't tell me about it. So we're gonna make up some darn good green because we're gonna do the leaves first. Now, when you're doing pretty much any kind of painting, even landscapes or whatever, what you find easiest to do is whatever's in the background. So if you start in the middle, you're gonna have to be careful with these little petals not to interfere with this nice middle. And then the bigger petals, you're gonna have to go around the little petals. So instead of doing that, we're gonna start from the outside. So you see the very outside is our leaves. So we're gonna do the leaves, and then we have a chance to clean up those edges when we do the bigger petals. Then we're gonna have a chance to clean up this part with the little petals and so on. So this works a lot better. And when you're tracing your pattern, you don't have to worry about putting in all these slash marks and all those teardrops and things, because we're going to be adding those on after. This is just to give you an idea of how to do the finished one with all the details at the end. So we're going to have 2 puddles of our gold. Now if you don't have gold, just mix a little bit of brown in with your yellow, because that yellow is very, very bright. One of the things that I like to say is that the reason you don't use bright colors is Norwegians, I'm Norwegian, so I can say, are not all that exciting. So if you have bright colors, it might just be a little too much for our Norwegian blood. So the other thing is that in way back in the 1800s, when Rosemaling started, it was because the farmers, during their off season, during the winter season, they wanted to have some income. So what they did was they came up with the Rosemaling, and they would go to the richer houses and they would offer to paint, like decorative painting. I'm sure you've all seen that on walls, on furniture and things like that. And back then they heated with coal, from what I heard. And if you ever heated with coal, which again in the old days we did that a little bit, coal can be kind of I don't know, when you heat with coal, it kind of turns your walls a little bit dark and stuff. So maybe they did start out with exciting bright colors, and because of heating with coal, everything got a little bit more muted or dingy or whatever. So that's another theory, but I like to think that it's just because Norwegians aren't all that exciting in most ways. So we're going to have some brown and some black and some white. So you just need a little bit. We're not going to, it's not like painting a canvas. So we're just going to put a little bit of these colors on, And then we're going to mix up, as Helen, the lady that I learned my Rosemaling from, would call it, it's a darn good green. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our gold into some of our blue. Now you're going to be more on the gold side than the blue side. Okay, now that's kind of exciting there. It's kind of bright and flashy. So you might want to tone it down with just a little bit of black or a little bit of brown. Okay, so then you're going to want to clean out your brush. You're going to want to have a glass of water there to clean out your brush. If you have coffee or another beverage, just make sure that you drink out of the proper one and clean your brush out of the other one. Now what we're going to do, like I said, double loading is the key word of the day. You know, if you really get into Rosemaling, you can triple load, but that's kind of like for overachievers. And so today we're just going to do the double loading. So I'm going to double load my brush by putting one side of my paintbrush in the gold. Now I'm going to kind of go back and forth so that both sides get half loaded with our gold. Then I'm going to dip into my green, my darn good green, as Helen would say, and have that half and half. See how nice that is? Now I'm going to do a running strip just to make sure that I've got it coated good. Now on our leaves, you can tell that the outside, I like to call it a woman's shape kind of, because that would be like my belly and that part. So we want to do the outside silhouette of my body. Sorry for the image there, the mental image, but go on the outside with your light color. You're not going to do your light color on the inside. So go ahead and start either at one end or the other, and I'll show you both. And what you want to do is have your paintbrush pretty much up and down. Now see how I'm going like this, and then I take a break and go like this. So see how it's double loaded? Now you can leave it like this, but for good Rosemaling, you want to blend it a little bit more. So have your brush straight up and down and kind of go light, push down, let up. Light, push down, let up. And go over it a couple times so you still have the nice gold on the outside, but you have your green on the inside. And then in between, you have a nice blending of it. Yeah. Now we're going to fill in the green here after we get all these done. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and reload whenever we need to, and then I'll show you how to do it from the top down. So if you're doing it from the top down, go ahead and do the same thing pretty much, but just from the top down. Now when you get to the petal part of your design, it's much better if you go a little bit over. See how I'm going a little bit over? Than to have a space there. Now that's when it comes in handy for starting with the back, because if you start with the back, you have that chance to clean up your leaves if you need be. So whichever way works best for you. It might be kind of a good idea to try both ways. And see how I'm just going over it? And we don't want to have little choppy lines like this. I did a little bit there just to kind of fill in my color, but for the final go around, I want to make sure that I have good smooth lines going. So you go ahead and do all of these, and through the magic of Pauline's video, we'll stop it here. And then we'll be able to come back after I have all that done, and we'll go on to the next part. So see, it should only take you a couple seconds to get everything done. No, it really doesn't take you very long. So once you get all of your leaves blocked in with a double loaded brush, then what you can do is clean out your brush and just go with your darn good green. Now, it's important again to make sure that you have those nice flowing lines. So when you go over it for the last time after you filled in the green, make sure that you've got those nice lines filled, or nice brush strokes to fill in those areas.
I see you're following that curvature.
Yeah, yep.
And then kind of straightening it out on the edge.
Right. Now, if you're triple loading your brush, what you would do is you would have your dark color on the one side, the side with the side on the opposite of your gold. So go ahead and fill in those. And again, it's better to go over your next step, which is those petals, than to leave some blank spaces. So just kind of take your time, do a good job, get it nicely filled, and then we'll do our next step. Now you can use whatever within the colors that we have as samples, the traditional authentic colors. You can decide if you want to have your blue next, or maybe a orangish color, or just a gold, whatever color you want to do next. But what we're going to do is we're going to do the blue. Now if you want to, I can show you one more thing, and that's to water down your black just a little bit, like I'm doing. And what you can do is right along this edge here, you can put in a little bit of black, because if you were triple loading, you would probably be doing that dark color there. But just to give it a little shadow underneath those teardrops. So that's something that you can do if you feel comfortable doing that. But just to add another little part to your Rosemaling strokes. Okay, so next we're going to mix, we're going to dirty up our white a little bit, because no white should be that bright. Okay, so remember again the Norwegian thing. So what we're going to do is you can add a little bit of brown, a little bit of your gold, to dirty it up just a little bit. And it doesn't have to be very much. Now what we're going to do is we're going to darken our brown or our blue a little bit. So since I used my blue with a darn good green, and it's kind of mixed up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and put another dab of blue on my plate, and I'm going to mix up a little bit of black, because again, that's just too darn exciting. Okay, so after that, I'm going to wash out my brush so that I'll be able to double load with that off-white and the blue. Again, it's all about the double loading your brush. So make sure your brush is pretty clean. And again, you can use the bigger of your flat brush for your leaves, and then also what's on here, the blue petals. So double load your brush. Make sure that you've got it nice and loaded. Do a little test strip like this. And when you've got it pretty good there, I think mine might be a little watered down, so we'll give it a test go here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the one side of your big petal. We're going to go up, around, and down. Now I need to reload because I need some more paint on my brush, because this is a pretty big petal. I'm going to do a test strip again, and I'm going to start again. And you might want to remember to have your brush straight up and down, and you might want to go light and then squish down and then let up at the very end. And see how your colors are going to be blending? Just say yes, Pauline.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Beautiful.
Oh, gorgeous.
I was noticing how when you start the corner of your petal, it's a really skinny line that your brush is making, and then how you press down, it widens that out a lot.
Yeah.
I remember my grandma doing that when she was doing her Rosemaling, and it really looks beautiful.
Yeah, yep. And then you go all the way around and do this. Now you'll see that that blue right by your little petals, that's where we're gonna fill in, just like we did with our leaves, because there's gonna be a little spot where that's not gonna reach. So don't be afraid to reload and get plenty of paint on your wood piece here, so that you're gonna have enough to really blend. And I hope you can see how this is just, if you come at it right instead of being stressed out, which there's no reason to, you see how it's just kind of relaxing to blend. Now I need more paint here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start in the middle and make sure I get enough paint down there. Now I might have too much, so I'm just gonna wipe out on my paper towel a little bit, and then I'm gonna go over it a couple times. What you wanna do is have that nice blend of color in the middle. Okay, so you got your light on the outside, and then your nice blue on the inside. So you wanna go ahead and do all four. Now again, if you want practice, go ahead, put your pattern underneath a piece of tracing paper. When we did oil paints, we used to use wax paper. Now you could try wax paper too. I don't know if it has the same effect with acrylics as it does with oils, but that might be another thing too. If you don't have tracing paper, just use some wax paper. And after you've done it a couple times and you feel comfortable with what you're doing, then go ahead and start on your, what you want as your finished piece. So again, I'm just double loading the brush, doing a little test strip. And again here, I'm gonna go ahead halfway through and put a little more paint, so that when I come through for my final brush strokes, they'll be all in one stroke. I have enough paint on that second half of my petal to make it all the way around. Now from here on, we probably want to use our littler brush. So I've got my littler brush here, and I'm going to go into just my dark blue, and I'm going to fill in that space between where we ended. It looks like I got a little bit of white in there by mistake. So I'm going to take up a little bit of that, okay? And I'm going to wait until that dries, and I'm going to go over to my next piece. Sometimes if you need to paint over a part, it's better if you wait until it dries completely. So that's what I'm going to do, because I've got the other 3 petals to work on. So I'm just going to fill in, see, in between those 2 smaller petals that we're going to do, and then just do a finished nice blend. So after you get the part filled in with your blue petals, now what we're going to do is, how about if we mix our red, which is a little too bright. Look at how bright that is. You almost need sunglasses for that one. So what we're going to do again is to tame it down a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit of black into my red, and that kind of gives it a rich red, doesn't it, Pauline? Just
Beautiful.
yes. Yeah, beautiful. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to use, I think, just our straight up gold there. So after you mix up your red, then wash out your brush real good so that you can pick up some of that gold and not have it mixed in with the red. And then once again, what are we doing, Pauline?
Oh, you're double loading your brush.
Oh, excellent. I think Pauline's gonna get into this.
Oh yes.
Okay, so now with our little brush, this is going to be a little bit more tricky, but see, we've got some practice in with double loading our brush with a bigger brush and all this. Now this is going to be a little more challenging, so you might want to again practice. But what you're going to do is you're going to have your brush so the outside is the outside of your petal, and the inside, the red part, the edge of that brush is going to be kind of in the middle, in between here, if that makes sense. So what you're going to do is have your brush straight up and down, and you're going to pretty much just move your outside gold part of the brush. See how we're doing that?
Almost just like a half moon.
Yep. So you're doing most of the work with the gold part of the brush. You're whipping that around the outside, and the red part you're pretty much staying in the same spot. So go ahead, and you want to have 2 of these per width of the blue petal. So you're going to want to keep it so that in between here is pretty much in the middle of your blue, because if you see on the sample one, we're going to have those teardrops in the middle. So if you have one of these petals that are huge and the other petal that's smaller, it's going to look a little wonky. And that's a technical term.
Can be used for anything.
Yes, wonky. I think it originated in Norway, don't you?
I think so.
Wonky. I speak no Norwegian at all. Do you?
No.
And here I put the wrong side in the wrong color. So I wiped it out. Wiped it off my brush. And then if Pauline hadn't been filming this, nobody would have ever known. And then you'd think I never make mistakes.
Well, it's nice when the teacher makes a mistake once in a while, so people learn how to fix it.
Well, that's good, because I make plenty of them.
That might be what I tell my students.
And then see how I'm going into the center part? Nobody likes anybody that's absolutely perfect, do they?
No.
So just go ahead and go all the way around. Again, remember to keep your paintbrush straight up and down. That's going to help you be able to do that curve there. All the way around curve. And if your brush gets too full of all the paint, just take a break, wash out your brush. This one, you see how, I'm doing some imperfections there just so you know that I'm not perfect. Okay.
The nice thing about these acrylics, I've used in craft projects, is they dry pretty fast.
They really
and
do.
You certainly can just give it a minute to dry and then come back over the top and change it up.
Sometimes painting wet on wet just doesn't work very good.
No.
So it's better to just kind of work on another part of it, wait until it dries, and come back. And you've noticed that again, it's just not a one-time thing. It's good to go over 2 or 3 times. Okie dokie?
Yeah,
okay.
Looks great.
So now we're done with this part. Now, you've noticed that when we do this, we're always using the white on the outside and the dark, or the lighter on the outside and the darker on the inside. Now in the very center, we're going to do the opposite. And I think it makes it look more 3-dimensional, where the middle part looks like it's rounded up, and then around the edge, it looks like there's more of a shadow.
Neat.
So we're going to make this pretty easy once again. And you can mix a little bit of black into your brown if you want. But otherwise, what we're going to do, I think maybe actually our bigger brush would work a little bit better. So I not only am imperfect, but I lie too. So we're going to dip into our brown and into our gold.
Ooh, that's going to be pretty.
Okay. Now, as we're doing this, it seems like we're getting a little more challenging strokes, aren't we? Because now what we're going to try and do is take a deep breath, or if you're drinking, oh no, this is for kids too. Never mind, you guys. So take a deep breath, and then try as hard as you can to go around, all the way around. Okay? Now it's a little intimidating, but I know you can do it. And I might just turn it around and go the other way because I loaded my brush on both sides. So see how I'm keeping the outside a really nice, true dark brown, and then the inside I'm keeping my really nice gold. Now after you do that, then go ahead and try to blend it a few times.
Soften that line.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now we're done with this part. Now we get to use our little brush and we're doing all the detail parts. Now what I like to do is I like to dip my brush in the water first. And sometimes there's a dot of water that collects on the metal part of your brush. And sometimes when it's the most inopportune times, that little bead of water will drip down and kind of create some bleeding effect. So I always make it a habit with just my finger, just make sure that I've got that extra water. Now when we're doing the line work, you can get really nice lines if you water down whichever color you're using for the line work. Now since I'm doing this on the black, I'm going to use the light lines. Now when I used on here, you can see that I used for my leaves, I used a dark color. So you can use like a really dark brown or a black. Now what we're going to do first is the leaves. So we're going to start right in between our blue petals because that's where our leaves start. And with a really light hand, we're going to go up the leaf, and as we get to about here, we're going to squish down on our paintbrush and then lift up. Okay?
Wow.
So that's how we kind of make our teardrops. So you're going to go around and do that to each one. Now, the nice thing, and I've thought about this a lot, you know, when the Norwegians were doing the Rosemaling on walls, they didn't have the chance to be able to turn their work around or to work as comfortable as we are. So this one was a little bit dry, so I put a little more water in my paint, watered it down a little bit, and with a steady hand, as steady as you can get, then just go ahead and go up your leaf. And then when you get to the end, then you push down and let up. But you do this while you're moving your brush continually. Now for the smaller teardrops in here, you can do pretty much the same thing. Now sometimes and if this doesn't work really good for you, you might want to try the opposite. Try pushing down on your thick part and then letting up and go down. For me, this works pretty good. So I'm going to continue doing that. Do light, light, light. And then as I'm moving the paintbrush, push down, let up. And again, this might be something that you'll want to practice also. Now, I'm not going to take the time, or your time, I should say, to go ahead and do these all. So I'm going to show you how to do the rest of these. So we're going to do some teardrops. Now this is the most exciting part, I think, of Rosemaling, is adding all these details and lines, because I think it really makes it pop. So like when I'm doing these teardrops up here, the outside ones I want to turn just a little bit. And again, if your paintbrush is straight up and down, it works a little bit better. Now for the middle of here, of your blue petals, you can do the same. Now when you're loading your brush, do you see how I'm kind of twirling it? And I'm getting it so it's loaded pretty much all the way up. Now that's really going to help on your long lines, but it's going to help on your teardrops too. So we've got this done. Now this is a really difficult part of this, and I want you to pay attention because it's so difficult that I don't want to explain this twice. Now with the other end of your paintbrush, we're going to do the most difficult part of Rosemaling on this pattern, and that's doing 3 dots.
Oh,
okay?
Something
Did you
even
get
I
that,
can
Pauline?
handle.
I don't want to have to do this again. Okay, another part we're going to do is the cross hatching in the middle. So this time I'm going to use a black. I'm going to water it down with my fine liner brush, and I'm going to twirl my brush so I get it loaded way up there. Make sure that there's not a water bead on my brush on the metal part. And then I'm going to go from one side to the other and have it a little bit rounded, so again it makes it look more three-dimensional. And I'm going to go from side to side, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it and go the other way. So now I'm going to turn it, and starting at the top I'm going to go from side to side. And then there's one last part, well, 2 last parts. The next part is taking your paintbrush the other side once again, and to clean up in between your little petals there, which some of us need, meaning me, I'm going to go ahead and write in between those little petals, I'm going to put dots, and it makes it a little more decorative, and it also cleans up
Nice.
any kind of imperfections you have for joining those petals there. So see how nice that is? Now the last part is, I think you need to sign your work. Now the bowl that I did years and years ago was with the oil paints, and I did actually put the year, which I kind of regret because I think it was 1984.
Just like last year
So
for
don't
you.
do the math. I was 5 when I did that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what it'll look like when we get it finished. Also, if you want to, you know, the black gets kind of scuffed up real easy. So I just take any kind of acrylic varnish, and it kind of livens up the colors a little bit, but not too much because we're still doing Norwegian Rosemaling. But it kind of brings out the colors a little bit, and it protects your piece from getting scuffed up. Okay, so I even did it on the wood one too, but I've noticed, especially with the black, man, you really get it scuffed up easy.
Doesn't take much, does it?
And since you're using straight up black, you know, anything like here, I must have done a little bit of a smear there. So then just when everything's dry, before you put on the sealer, go ahead and you can even use your finger and then just cover up any spots or splashes or anything that you've got going on. And see how here too, I think I got something going on. I've got glitter going on actually, which would be way too much for a Norwegian Rosemaling, wouldn't it? So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this. What I did here, there's a lot more that you can do. This is just a little taste of it. But what I did here is if you want a little bit more detail, I took my light color and I did light, squish down, and then light around there. And that's another way of cleaning it up. If you want to, you could put 3 little teardrops in the middle of these guys. This one I didn't have a very good brush. And don't get so close, Pauline. Just way high on that one because I'm not real proud of that one. That one I'd probably do over again. But if you feel the need to do that, you sure can. So thanks, you guys.
Well, thank you, Pam, so much for this. I hope everybody has an opportunity to try it out. Come up and see Pam at Cottage Gifts. She'll hook you up with the transfer, the template for this. She'll hook you up with the wood and offer any advice that she can give to you as a first timer. If you're an experienced Rosemaler, maybe you'd like to come up and hang out for a while. She's got these tables set up here so you can sit here and work on
Make sure you don't
something.
get paint on the table.
Yes,
That's
I
one
think that's
thing.
the sign of a true artist is you share your work with your workspace.
At least a messy person.
Well, thank you.